Good evening. It's 6:30 as I chat to you. I'm nearly done for the day, but I thought I would finish up by rattling through tomorrow's Cheltenham card, and I don't want this to be a 25-minute job. We'll try and bring a bit more focus using some of the stats and various different things, highlighting some of the things, the usual things, trainer form, the instant expert stuff, speed ratings, pace, and to kind of home in on a few that at this stage look most interesting to me for some kind of fun Saturday wagers. We start the 1240, the JCB Triumph Trial Juvenile Hurdle. Often is the case in kind of non-handicaps and novice hurdles and juvenile hurdles and chases. The market can guide. We've got two here that are pretty short, and this doesn't look like a race to get involved with really. If the Hobbs or Henderson horses don't win, it looks like that would be quite a shock. So I don't really want to spend too much time on this particular race. I should say that the kind of jockeys were reporting that the ground was kind of dead and on the slow side. They didn't think there was too much good in it. So it'll be interesting to see what it's like tomorrow. But it's certainly kind of not fresh, bouncy ground. I think it's pretty holding in places, or that kind of tacky feel which some horses just do not handle. The other general point I think I'll make, as it comes to my head, having had a flick through, this feels like it might be a day for the big boys again. The likes of Nichols, Hobbs, Pipe, Henderson, some kind of other West Country trainers, I suppose, the likes of Harry Fry. It's got a feeling like it might be a day dominated by the big boys, and I'm sure Colin Tizard might have a part to play as well, possibly. So that's something to bear in mind. I should think many of them have targeted their horses at this day and at a few of the races. We move on to the 115, a three-runner novice chase, and really not a betting proposition, is it? A race to kind of watch and enjoy, really. And I'm not going to spend any more time on it than that. It's not the kind of race I would be interested in getting involved with. This is a bit more like it. I was going to look at some stats and trends for this race, but it normally has a kind of double the numbers of this, or at least kind of 14, 13, 14, 16 runners. And kind of a single figure field completely changes the dynamic and can change the pace that the races run at, and all kinds of other things, and kind of make any historical stats or trends a bit more pointless. So it's best kind of analysing it as you would any normal chase. I'm sure I'll have a good look at this tomorrow. I just, in chases like this, I struggle to kind of tip or back anything under 6-1. Three Faces West does jump out at you. He jumps out at you because Cobbs is going well. The horse is in the kind of unexposed, could be anything category, despite the fact he's 9. He has had 339 days off, which would worry you given he won in December, and would suggest they have had a problem. So it'll be interesting to see if the market kind of guides. What interests me, I suppose, is the pace. And the fact that he does look like the only out-and-out front runner, and you suspect Richard Johnson will be aggressive with him. He ticks a few of the stats. If I kind of glance down in here, what does he hit? Hold on. Oh yeah, hit some of the trainer pointers. Three Faces West there. In terms of the type of horse Hobbs kind of does well with at this meeting. So I kind of won't put anyone off him. Doing Manila Rocco's a kind of stats pick. He's in a handicap. His last handicap he ran in off 155 and got beat in this race last year, and he comes here off 166. I know they've always thought a lot of him, and possibly that run, Gold Cup run, could well be enough, but that is quite a kind of lump of weight. So it'll be interesting to see how he gets on. But he has the potential and is quite a classy horse. So I suppose he's interesting. There's quite a few other old boys in here who I wouldn't kind of want to be with, the likes of Ben Benton, Shotgun Paddy, Perfect Candidate. Those three look up against it, against some kind of interesting progressive rivals. You can see the instant expert there. Vicente looks interesting. It'll be interesting to know what Paul Nicholls' plan is with him. Again, he ticks a few of his boxes. So maybe at the value and at the price, Vicente might be the interesting one. Who knows if they're aiming for another tilt at the national or the Scottish national again. It's hard to know. He does have a good record fresh. and has a good record here, and it's Nichols. So maybe Vicente, if all 9 run, might be an interesting kind of each way or small win bet. I'll ponder that in the morning, but 3 Faces West should definitely lead. If he's fit and A1, I suspect my hunch is he probably will stay there. But Vicente might chase him home if he's here and ready to roll. Doing Fine is interesting. That price isn't necessarily tempting me, and he does get outpaced and is a hold-up horse. This race may have well been the target. He's been running twice this season if he has a target in mind. Maybe it is this race. It's not impossible that it is. He's a couple of pounds out of the handicap, isn't he? And Tom Skoo rides, that might be a weight thing. I'm not 100% sure why Noel Feely isn't on, but that might be running at 10 stone possibly. That's the only thing I can think of at the top of my head. Yeah, he's an interesting one. He has always kind of struggled at this level. As you can see there, he's 0.50 places when running in Class 1 races. So there's a slight class niggle in the context of his price. So I'm not 100% sold on him, but I wouldn't be surprised if he ran a big race. But I possibly at kind of 5.5 to 1 can live with him winning. So yeah, I think my eyes will be 3 Faces West and Vicente are the 2 that I'm kind of looking at. We'll see if I put anything for tomorrow. Manila Rocco's interesting. That it's just his rating strikes me as being rather high, but he does have a touch of class. Then we get on to the Bet Victor Gold Cup Handicap Chase. I was just trying to think what I forgot to kind of go through. That's the kind of speed ratings for the race, as you can see there. Fairly tight actually for the top 4. Right, let's move on to the 425. There's a short list. The first place to start, if I just run through the kind of basics, you can see there with the amount of green and orange that, as you would expect, this is a very competitive race. Yeah, it looks kind of wide open on paper, I suppose. You've got the place stats there, as you can see. If I look at the pace, you've got Foxtail Hill, will probably kind of go off like a scolded cat again, and these others might be chasing him in vain. But there's a few pace pushers there, so this race might be run at quite a good clip. And then you've got kind of some likes of Carmel Lock and Starkitect who track the pace, and various others. We've got the short list, as you can see in the members, kind of those stats that I use there: Left Tallies, Le Presien, Aquadude and Lake Takapuna, or however you say that name. It probably should be interesting to note that in the last 20 years, those sent off 16 to 1 or bigger in this, or no, let me correct that. Yeah, sent off bigger than 16 to 1, I think, are only 2 from 142 runners. So it's quite hard to find a big price winner, but not impossible. But that kind of odds cap might be an interesting guide. They've got the likes of Carmel, Le Presien, Roman de Stam, Starkitect hit the trainer pointers. If I look at those that hit, there's quite a few that hit this micro angle. Clearly won't be backing them all. You have to pick which ones and probably leave the winner, no doubt. The Presien appears again there. And yeah, the 14 to 1 or shorter for that particular angle might help kind of sort the wheat from the chaff. What do I want to say? What ones are looking interesting? Well, Carmel Lock for Harry Fry looks interesting, but he seems to be well touted, and for a top weight returning after that day's break, 13 to 2 might seem short enough, I think, for me. Maybe he'll do what the Pipe Horse did today and drift to a wonderful price of 11 to 1. Shame he wasn't that in the morning. The Presien, I think I'm going to have to back at kind of 8, 9 to 1. I'll be shocked if he doesn't carry a kind of half point £10 note or fiver maybe of my money. He just looks interesting. This looks like he's probably been set up for this. He steps up in trip. He is on the stats shortlist. He ticks Nichols stats. He ticks that other micro stat. So from a stats perspective, he looks interesting. From a profile perspective, he looks interesting. Unexposed, stepping up in trip. There could be more to come from him this year. He's got Cheltenham form. He does just look interesting. Of the others that I thought were of interest, Tully East looks like he might have been aimed at this. He is £10 above that Cheltenham Festival win when we were on, so that was a happy days and was quite a good race to watch. But that's a festival race. He is still unexposed. He is in the could be anything category. He's only had 5 chases. He returned over hurdles the last day. He won't mind the cut or probably the dead ground, hopefully. This looks like a target, it looks like a plot. And there could be quite a bit of pace on here, which might suit his hold-up style, and Dennis O'Regan will jump away, potter away out the back, fill his lungs, and hopefully come with a rattle at the end. So he does look interesting. I always have an issue, I suppose, with horses, the likes of Roman de Sinam, who've kind of been running at Stratford to then step up and run at Cheltenham, but there's probably some stats which proves that's a load of nonsense. But the Presien and Tully East catch my eye, as does Starkitect, mainly because Pipe had a winner today. His yard is going very, very well. This horse is in the could be anything category. He ran at Stratford, but importantly, he does have some form in some decent races. I don't think he probably stayed at Aintree. He was hampered in March in a decent race at the festival a couple of times, actually. He's only £1 higher than that run, and you would think actually a repeat of that performance might take him very close here. He's another one who is unexposed over fences. This has no doubt been a target, and I should think he might still have a fair whack in hand. So if I'm being honest, having looked through that, Lepresian, Tully East, and Starkitect are the three that might carry some interesting money as I kind of talk through. I haven't looked at this in kind of loads of depth, but those three certainly look most interesting. Aqua Dude, the price and market would put me off a bit, as does the fact that he doesn't have form at Cheltenham, which is a big question, and he really does need to step up on what he has done today. I think I'm happy leaving him. The Manisha Williams horse is interesting, but the market will guide with that. If he's kind of 16 to 1 or shorter, or 14 to 1, maybe of more interest. Lake Takapuna hits the stats, and long-suffering readers will know of anguish in years gone by or months gone by of leaving horses that are kind of on a short list of 4 and a kind of 50, 40 to 1 unbacked can be rather painful. So I'd be shocked if I don't throw kind of 250 at him at Betfair starting price. You might even be a kind of interesting little each way bet, as this may have been the target as well, and he's unexposed, hasn't got many miles on the clock, and Paddy Brennan rides, which is never a bad thing over fences. So there's a few thoughts there without wanting to back half the field. Kind of take those as you please. If I look at the speed ratings, you can see there who's kind of up there as a kind of guide and which trainers are in form. This feels like, in terms of Nigel Twiston-Davies has a good record in this race. John Joe's won it before, so has Paul Nicholls a few times, Pipe and Alan King. So yeah, Pipe and Nicholls, maybe those two will be fighting it out at the end. So that's that race. He's 3 o'clock. I'm not going to focus too much on. This looks a bit of a puzzle. I am tempted to just focus on the top two here. Thomas Campbell won with a fair bit in hand the last day. He raced wide and he was keen, and he still won rather snugly. So they might race him prominently. They've taken £7 off. This is the reason why. It's races like this why Henderson has signed up James Bowen, you would think. And it's interesting that he gets put on here to eradicate most of that £10 rise. I suspect he will go very close and he'll probably win. Del Arca has been whacked by another £10. He now bumps into a horse in Thomas Campbell who is coming the other way up the scale and could have more in hand. So that might be tough, but I suspect he'll run his race. And when I flicked through earlier, there was nothing else really that was catching the eye. There's not much pace in this. It is there to be stolen from the front. I suppose they might crawl. Henderson's typically have a kind of turn of foot about them, but James Byrne might just decide to make all. Tom Skoo may not be far away. Maybe David Bass will be aggressive on the front end. His horse has quite a high speed figure. Bailey doesn't do that well here, but he is unexposed and could be anything, so who knows. Maybe they will try and steal this from the front. So you've kind of got the top three there. You'd think one of them is winning this race. I'd be surprised if it wasn't a Henderson horse, but that's not really a race I want to bet in, I don't think, as I scoot onto 3:30 and tick round to 14.5 minutes. This was the shortlist from my stats. The Nicholls horse, QD, however you say that name, looks very interesting. Nicholls is 2 from 4 in this race. He's a short list, as you can see. Well, I say a short list, there's 7 horses, but those at the bigger odds might be able to be knocked off. He ticks some of the Nicholls stats pointers for this meeting. He qualifies on the micro on the 5-year-old angle, and I would be shocked if I don't throw something at him if he's kind of 9 or 10 to 1. I suspect he might run a decent race. 4-year-olds have an awful record in this. I was kind of looking at the pipe horse. Maybe that's one that changes it, but in 19 runnings of this, I think the last 19 runnings, 4-year-olds haven't won. So, and quite a few have tried. Quarenta is interesting, for he hits our member stats, doesn't he? The market is suggesting he has no chance. I'll be fascinated to see what it does. I thought he had an interesting chance the last day where he probably qualified as well. But he folded and ran as if he didn't stay. He travelled into it really well, and I thought he was going to pick up, but he went out very, very tamely, suggesting he might have bled or there was an issue. The fact that he's here 21 days later, I don't really know what to think about that. And of course, he's up in class, and maybe the race was just too competitive for him. But he's going to hit one of our strategies, possibly. Is he, as I kind of work out which sheets of paper I've got, might just help if I look. Where is he? Well, he might be bigger than 25 to 1 in the morning, so he might not hit any strategies because he doesn't have any ratings pointers. So that'll be interesting enough to see what kind of price he is in the morning. But yeah, certainly the Nichols horse there looked of most interest to my eyes, and there might be 4 places to play with and might look a sound each way bet. And that was that really. There was nothing I was too strong on. You've got some big prices here that might be worth a second glance. Like I've said, there's some stats in terms of the odds and kind of bigger prices in general in handicaps at this meeting struggle. That's not to say it's impossible, of course, but you would think one of the big yards might have something to say about this race. If I look at the instant expert, if I just hold on, bring all these back into play. Hold on, where are we? Yeah, so as you know, there's quite a few that are unexposed here and kind of lightly raced in conditions. Seymour Star is interesting in the fact he ticks most race conditions, so maybe big prices might be of interest. And yeah, I think that's it really. What else ticks those boxes in this particular race? As I flick down, it was a 3:30, wasn't it? Yeah, you can see the Nichols horse there ahead of the curve. He was interesting, but I'd be surprised if Sue Corbett has a horse good enough to win at Cheltenham. Despite his consistency, he clearly needs to step up. But you never know, I might have just mentioned the winner. What else am I looking at? Yeah, poker play, like I said, the 4-year-olds, you've got Nichols' horse coming up again there. And the longer shortlist, he appears there, and you can see the others there. So you might want to work your way through and form an opinion on some of those if you want. I'd be quite keen from the stats and profile point of view on the Nichols horse, and maybe I'll ponder a bit further on what else I might want to throw some change at, excuse me, for some entertainment. As we tick around to 80 minutes, we go on to the National Hunt Flat Race. Not much to say here, really. Pineapple Rush hits the Hobbs stats for this meeting, or the type that he does well with. I saw both Posh Trish and the Fergal O'Brien horse backed it out at Aintree. His O'Brien's got thrown out, having drifted into Posh Trish. Those two could be quite nice horses and may well be fighting out again. It wouldn't surprise me if they were. The Harry Fry one seems quite well fancied. Not a race to really bet in or go mad in, I don't think, personally, but you might have a strong view on something else, maybe some change at the Hobbs horse, but there's quite a few with experience in here who are in very good form and look quite progressive, so he will have to be smart, or she, because it's a mare's race, she will have to be smart to win, but you never know. So we've kept that under 20 minutes. Hopefully something of use in there, and I will leave that there. Who knows if I've mentioned the winner? We shall see. Hopefully Paul Nichols has a good day and might win 1 or 2 races, and David Pipe may have something to say about that as well, and maybe Philip Hobbs. Those 3, I will probably be a little bit poorer on the day if neither of those 3 have any winners across some of those races I've touched on, but we shall see and time will tell. So yeah, enjoy the rest of your Friday evening and Saturday morning, or Saturday and the rest of your weekend. This is Josh saying bye for now and good luck.